The Galactic Council had ruled the galaxy for centuries. For as long as anyone could remember, the Council was the ultimate power. It was a group of leaders from the most powerful alien civilizations, all of them sitting in a massive, shining hall. The stars outside the giant windows twinkled peacefully, as if nothing could disturb this calm. The members of the Council sat on their thrones, wearing their ceremonial robes, looking confident, even smug. They believed their power was unmatched. No one, no race, could challenge their authority. The leaders spoke to each other in low voices, discussing minor matters of trade and diplomacy. It was another routine meeting, nothing out of the ordinary. But for the members of the Galactic Council, routine meant control, and control meant peace. There was no need to worry about any threat. They had crushed all enemies before, and they had the biggest fleet in the galaxy. They were the ones who made the rules, and everyone else followed them. Then, something strange happened. A loud beep broke through the calm of the meeting room, a high-pitched sound that no one had expected. The sound came from the main communication console at the center of the room. The council members turned their attention to it, frowning. This was a rare event. No one had sent them a message in years, not since the last Great War, when the galaxy was finally secured under their rule. The console flashed to life, and a deep voice echoed through the room. This is a message to the Galactic Council, a warning. The leaders looked at each other in confusion. Who could be sending a warning to them? They had made it clear to the galaxy long ago that the Council would not tolerate any threats. Whoever sent this message was either misinformed or foolish. The voice continued, cold and calm. Humanity is not as weak as you think. You will soon see what they are capable of. The room fell silent. The members of the Council exchanged glances, their faces changing from confusion to disbelief. Humanity, the human race, had always been seen as insignificant. For years, they had been considered primitive, barely able to defend their planet, let alone challenge the might of the Galactic Council. Most of the Council members had never even considered the possibility that humans could be anything more than a small nuisance, easily controlled and ignored. But this message made them pause. The voice was serious. There was no fear or panic in it, only a sense of quiet certainty. Whoever sent the message seemed to know something that the Council didn't. Humanity is coming, the voice continued, and they will not be ignored. The Council leaders sat frozen in their seats. The message was over. The screen flickered, then went dark. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with confusion and a growing sense of unease. The leaders had always prided themselves on their knowledge, on their ability to see and control everything that happened in the galaxy. But this was something they had never expected. Finally, one of the council members, a tall alien with glowing blue skin, stood up. His voice was firm, though it betrayed a hint of concern. "What is this? A prank? A joke from one of the lower planets?" The other members murmured, agreeing with his disbelief. A few laughed nervously. Humanity had been nothing to them for so long. This message was nothing more than a distraction, surely. But the leader of the council, an older alien with a sleek silver head and piercing red eyes, looked out the window at the stars. He knew the power of the galaxy. He had seen empires rise and fall. But even with all his experience, something about the message unsettled him. He turned slowly to face the others. Who would send such a message? He asked quietly, more to himself than anyone else. And why now? The room fell silent. Again, everyone had their theories, but no one had an answer. The council had been in control for so long, they hadn't considered the possibility of a true threat. Now, for the first time in a very long time, they were unsure. The leader stood up, his robes flowing around him. "Prepare for a meeting," he said. "We must find out more about this. If humanity is a threat, we will handle it as we always have. But first, we need to know if it's real." The room buzzed with nervous energy. The council members knew this was no time for doubt. There was no room for hesitation, especially if humanity had truly found some hidden strength. But deep down, each of them felt it, their unease, the uncertainty. They had never been caught off guard like this before, and as they made their preparations, one thing became clear to all of them. The galaxy they had once ruled with ease was no longer as certain as it seemed. Humanity was coming, and it might just be their greatest challenge yet. The Galactic Council was in disarray. Their meeting had barely ended when the real threat began to take shape. The leaders, who had once sat at the top of the galaxy's food chain, now found themselves scrambling to understand the reality they had ignored for so long. The message from humanity had left an indelible mark on their confidence, and now the galaxy would see how the council would react to something they couldn't predict. From their grand chambers, The council watched helplessly as the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The vast screens on the walls flickered to life once again, this time showing live footage from deep space. What appeared on the screen made even the boldest of the council's members pause. A fleet, a massive fleet. But this was no ordinary fleet, this was a fleet of warships, sleek and powerful, gliding silently through the dark expanse of space, untouched by the violence that surrounded it. They looked almost out of place, as if they didn't belong to any known civilization. The warships were unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Their designs were not clunky or brute like many alien ships. They were elegant, almost predatory. Each ship shimmered with a cold, metallic sheen that reflected the starlight. The curves of their hulls gave them a streamlined look, making them seem like they could cut through space with deadly precision. They weren't built for show, they were built for war. But what made the situation worse wasn't just the warships themselves. It was the realization that these ships were human-made. Humanity, the species the Council had laughed off as weak and insignificant, had created this fleet, and now it was advancing toward their doorstep. The leaders of the Council stared in disbelief as the human ships made their way deeper into the galaxy. The message they had received now felt more real than ever. Humanity had hidden this power, these warships, for years. No one had seen it coming, not even the most powerful alien civilizations. The ships seemed to move effortlessly, as if they had always been here, waiting for this moment to strike. That as the Council members continued to watch, a new wave of panic spread. They had thought themselves untouchable, but now they could feel the ground beneath them shift. The message had been clear: humanity is coming, and they will not be ignored. The reality of that statement had just begun to set in. Activate the emergency comms. One of the leaders, a tall figure with golden skin and sharp, angular features, ordered, "Get the fleet ready. We can't let these humans just walk into our territory." But the older leader, the one who had been the most shaken by the warning, raised a hand to stop him. "We must proceed carefully. This is not just another enemy fleet. We need to understand what we are facing before making any decisions." The tension in the room was palpable. It wasn't just a battle for control of the galaxy anymore. This was something deeper. This was about survival. That as the leaders debated, the screens flickered again, this time displaying a live communication from one of the human warships. A calm, poised voice echoed through the room. It was a woman's voice, clear, unwavering, and cold. "We are not here to fight unless we must," the voice said. "We are here to restore the balance that you've lost. You have underestimated humanity for too long, and now you will understand why that was your greatest mistake." The Council members were stunned into silence. The human commander was speaking as though she already knew the fate of the galaxy. There was no fear in her tone, no hesitation. She spoke with the kind of confidence that made the Council's strongest leaders question everything they had ever known. "Restoring balance," one of the Council members muttered, his voice filled with both confusion and fear. "What does she mean by that?" The older leader glanced around the room. "It means they've been watching us, watching everything we've done." The truth hit the Council like a punch to the gut. The message they had received wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. Humanity wasn't acting out of desperation or anger. They were acting because they had finally reached a point where they could no longer stand by and watch the galaxy be consumed by the greed and corruption of the Galactic Council. "We need to gather more intel," the leader continued, his voice cold and calculated. "But this isn't just about military power. This is about understanding why humanity has decided to reveal itself now. There's more to this than we know." As the Council prepared to send out reconnaissance probes to learn more, the human fleet continued its steady advance. The warships had already passed through several sectors, each one more advanced than the last. It was clear that humanity had been quietly preparing for this moment, this confrontation with the most powerful force in the galaxy. But what truly unsettled the Council was the realization that humanity was not just a threat because of its ships. No, it was the people themselves. Their resilience, their ingenuity, and their ability to outthink and outmaneuver their enemies had always been underestimated. But now, it was clear that those same qualities had given birth to a force unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. With every passing moment, the tension built. The warships were getting closer, and the Council's options were running out. There was no more time for preparation, no more time for diplomatic negotiations. Humanity had already made its move, and now it was up to the Galactic Council to decide whether they would bow to this new power or risk losing everything they had fought so hard to control. The battle for the galaxy had begun, and humanity was no longer an afterthought. The dark expanse of space stretched endlessly, its quiet emptiness now a constant reminder of the growing storm. The Galactic Council's once unshakable confidence was now replaced with doubt and unease. The warships of humanity, sleek and deadly, were moving closer to their territory, and each passing moment felt heavier than the last. The Council, desperate to regain control, ordered their most advanced fleets to assemble. Yet, despite their efforts, there was an overwhelming sense that nothing they did would be enough to stop what was coming. Inside the council chambers, the leaders stood together in silence, their faces a mixture of fear and determination. Each leader knew that this was no ordinary situation. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries, but now, the very force they had thought weak was proving them wrong in ways they could never have imagined. "We must do something," one of the younger leaders said, her voice trembling with barely contained anxiety. "This isn't just a military challenge, it's a question of power. They've hidden this strength from us for so long. Why now? Why reveal it all at once?" The older leader, who had remained quiet up until now, slowly turned his gaze toward her. His red eyes gleamed with a cold intelligence. But there was something else behind them, a flicker of doubt that hadn't been there before. He knew that humanity was unpredictable, but this was beyond anything he had anticipated. The human fleet, moving as if it were a single living entity, was a force that even he couldn't ignore. "We must understand their motives before we act," the elder leader said firmly. "We need to be prepared for whatever comes next. This isn't just about ships or firepower, it's about what humanity stands for." Meanwhile, outside the council's chambers, the galaxy was holding its breath. The planets that once lived in peace under the council's watch were now buzzing with whispers of humanity's newfound strength. Alien factions, who had once believed in the council's absolute rule, were now questioning their alliances. If humanity had warships like these, what else had they been hiding? As the council worked behind closed doors to formulate a plan, humanity's fleet continued its steady advance. The warships, each one more impressive than the last, cut through space like ghosts. Their movements were precise, almost surgical in their perfection. No one in the galaxy had seen anything like it. Ships designed for one purpose: to strike fear into the hearts of anyone who dared oppose them. Back in the council's chambers, the debate continued. There was talk of a full-scale military response. Some leaders argued for immediate action, while others cautioned against rushing into battle. The atmosphere was tense, with everyone aware that any wrong move could change the course of history. "The humans want us to make a move," one of the council members said, his voice filled with skepticism. "They've been waiting for us to make the first mistake. If we do, we'll be playing right into their hands." But another leader spoke up, her voice steady despite the growing uncertainty. "We can't afford to hesitate. They know our strengths. They know we've ruled the galaxy with fear and force. We've never had a true rival until now. We must show them that we are not afraid." "Afraid?" the elder leader interjected. "No, this isn't about fear. This is about understanding the consequences of our actions. Humanity's rise is not a simple act of aggression. There is something deeper at play here, something that we don't fully understand yet." Across the galaxy, whispers of humanity's strength continued to spread like wildfire. Some planets, once loyal to the Council, began to question their allegiance. Was it worth standing with a regime that had become complacent, that had ignored the very species they once saw as weak? Could humanity, with its seemingly endless resources and unyielding will, truly be trusted to lead? Meanwhile, humanity's fleet drew closer to the heart of the galaxy. The Council had been monitoring their every move, but there was little they could do to stop the inevitable. It was clear now that this was not just a matter of military power. Humanity had a purpose, something that went beyond conquest. The warships were not designed to conquer, they were designed to protect. Humanity's message was clear. They had come to restore order, not through violence, but through sheer willpower and a determination to set things right. As the Council continued to debate, a live communication flickered onto their screens. The human commander, a calm and collected woman, appeared once again. This time there was no warning, no build-up, just a simple direct statement: "We've arrived, and we are not leaving until you understand the truth of what humanity stands for." The screen went black. The council members stood frozen, the weight of her words hanging in the air. There was no doubt now their greatest challenge had arrived, and humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. Their warships, more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen, had reached the point where they could no longer be underestimated. "Prepare the fleet," the elder leader said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of years of experience. "We will face them head-on, but this time, we will be ready." As the council scrambled to prepare for the inevitable conflict, the galaxy outside remained as quiet as ever, awaiting the next move. The human warships were no longer a distant threat. They were here, and the future of the galaxy depended on how the Galactic Council chose to face them. Humanity had come for a reason, and now the galaxy would have to decide whether to embrace them or fight them to the very end. The stage was set, the lines were drawn, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The vast expanse of space outside the Galactic Council's chambers seemed to grow darker with every passing moment. The screens flickered and buzzed, displaying images of the advancing human warships that had now crossed deep into Council territory. The tension was unbearable. The ships were no longer a distant threat, they were closing in, and the entire galaxy could feel the weight of the moment. It was no longer about just stopping a military invasion. It was about understanding what humanity had truly become. Inside the grand halls of the Council, leaders sat in tense silence, their minds racing. A moment ago, they had been calculating their next move, preparing for battle. But now, as the live communication screen once again hummed to life, a wave of uncertainty swept through them. This time, the human commander appeared again, her face calm, but her words carried the power of a tidal wave. "We are not here to fight," she began, her voice steady but with an unmistakable undertone of authority. "We are here to restore balance. What you call order has been maintained by fear and control. We, humanity, are not here to conquer. We are here to stop you from destroying what is left of the galaxy." The room fell into complete silence. The council members who had expected threats, demanded explanations, or perhaps empty boasts, were stunned by the human commander's words. She wasn't challenging them with weapons or brute force. She was challenging their entire way of ruling. Her calmness, coupled with the sheer force of her statement, sent ripples through the room. The elder leader, who had remained mostly silent during the debate, felt the weight of the message sink in. For the first time in years, he found himself questioning everything the council had stood for. He could feel his hands tighten into fists as he listened to the words echo in his mind. Humanity wasn't here for vengeance. They weren't angry. They were resolute in their belief that they were doing what needed to be done. Restore balance. The question escaped one of the younger council members, her voice trembling. "What does that mean? Why now? Why haven't we heard of any of this before?" The commander's face remained composed, as if she had been expecting this question. "Because you chose to ignore us," she replied. "You chose to look at humanity as weak, insignificant. You left us to our own devices, thinking we would never rise up. You underestimated us, and now it's too late." A chill swept through the room as the implications of her words sank in. The Council had always prided itself on its ability to predict and control everything in the galaxy. They had crushed rebellion before, broken planets into submission with the flick of a switch, and maintained the delicate balance of power through sheer force. But they had failed to recognize the power humanity had quietly amassed. Humanity had not been preparing for war, they had been preparing to change the entire structure of the galaxy. The elder leader spoke again, his voice measured but filled with the weight of experience. "So, you expect us to surrender without a fight? You think we'll simply hand over the power we've held for centuries?" The human commander's eyes met his unflinching. "We do not seek to take power from you. We seek to give it back to the people. The galaxy has been enslaved by your fear for far too long. You may think your fleets are unbeatable, but what you do not understand is that power does not lie in weapons. It lies in the will to change." The room fell silent once again. The implications of her words were undeniable. The Council had spent centuries building an empire on fear, keeping the galaxy in check with a firm iron grip. But now, it seemed that humanity was offering a different kind of power that didn't rely on force, but on ideals. The thought was almost too much to bear. The younger leader, who had previously been the most vocal, spoke up, her voice filled with disbelief. "You think the galaxy will just accept your idealistic notions? The beings we rule over have long relied on our strength. You cannot expect them to follow you. Humanity will never bow to your kind." The commander's lips curled into a faint smile, almost as if she were anticipating this very response. "That's where you're wrong," she said, her voice calm yet full of conviction. "They already have. The ones who were once loyal to your power are now questioning your motives. The fear you've used to control them has started to fade, and when fear is gone, what's left is hope. Hope that someone will step in and show them a way out of the darkness you've kept them in." The statement echoed like a bombshell, detonating in the minds of the council members. Could it be true? Had their control over the galaxy really been slipping away without them noticing? Had their grip on the galaxy's future been built on something as fragile as fear? The thought was unthinkable. One of the leaders, a alien with jagged features, stood up. His voice was shaky, but it carried a dangerous edge. "You dare question our power? You think we will let a human rise above us?" The commander didn't flinch. She only stared back with cold, unwavering confidence. "No, I don't think I'm above you. I think I'm here to show you that what you've built can no longer stand. It's time for something new." And just like that, with a single sentence, the human commander had done what no one else had dared to do. She had exposed the very heart of the Council's power and shattered the illusion of their invincibility. The truth hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The Council's reign was not just threatened by military force, it was threatened by a new way of thinking, a way of thinking that humanity had brought to the table. The room was silent. The only sound was the hum of the communication console. The leaders of the Council had no words left. They were no longer in control of the narrative. Humanity had taken that power from them, and they didn't even know if they could take it back. The galaxy, once held under the unyielding control of the Galactic Council, was now on the brink of transformation. Humanity had arrived, not as a mere nuisance, but as an unstoppable force. The human warships, sleek and devastating, continued their steady march through the galaxy, heading straight for the heart of the Council's empire. Every star system they passed, every alien fleet they encountered, trembled at their presence. The very air seemed charged with the tension of what was about to unfold. The Council, caught in a state of disbelief, had finally come to a decision. They could no longer pretend that this was just a bluff. Humanity had proven that they were no longer the weak species they once thought them to be. And now, the Council had no choice but to defend everything they had built: their power, their influence, their future. The first wave of the Council's fleet was launched without hesitation. Hundreds of ships, armed with the galaxy's most advanced weaponry, surged forward, determined to stop the human advance. The Council's strategy was clear: overwhelm the human ships with sheer numbers, annihilate them before they could organize a true resistance. But they were not prepared for what they were about to face. As the Council's ships closed in on the human fleet, they were met with an eerie silence. The human warships didn't open fire immediately. Instead, they moved with a terrifying precision, maneuvering through space with a fluidity that defied all expectations. The ships seemed to act as one, each perfectly aligned with the others, creating a wall of advanced technology that was almost impenetrable. The Council's ships, with their brute force and raw power, were no match for the speed and coordination of the human fleet. Then, without warning, the human warships fired. A flash of light lit up the darkness of space. The energy beams from the human ships tore through the Council's vessels like a hot knife through butter. The first wave of Council ships was obliterated in mere moments. The once imposing fleet was reduced to space debris, scattered and burning. As the human ships pressed on without a hint of hesitation, the Council's leaders, watching from their command center, stared in shock. The first battle had been over before they could even respond. They had underestimated the humans, assuming their advanced technology would make short work of them. But what they had failed to realize was that humanity's true strength was not just in their weapons, it was in their ability to adapt, to think, and to strike with unmatched precision. "What have we done?" the younger leader whispered, her voice shaking. "We've unleashed a force we can't control." But the elder leader remained resolute. "We have no choice now. We must retaliate, or we will lose everything." The second wave of the Council's fleet was launched, this time with greater caution. They deployed their most advanced warships, ships that had been designed specifically to counter the human fleet. They hoped that with more firepower and advanced shields, they could finally force the humans into a retreat. But as the battle raged on, it became clear that the humans were not going to back down. The human commander, the woman who had first made contact with the Council, stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes fixed on the battle unfolding in front of her. She was calm, almost too calm, considering the destruction around her. The Council's ships were powerful, yes, but they lacked the coordination and finesse of the human fleet. Every shot, every maneuver, was planned, executed, and executed again with flawless precision. "Keep pushing forward," she ordered, her voice steady. "We cannot afford to let them regroup. We need to break their will to fight." Her orders were carried out without question. The human fleet moved as one, weaving in and out of the Council's attacks, systematically destroying their forces. Each human ship moved with purpose, taking down the enemy ships one by one, never faltering. It was a dance of destruction, and humanity was leading it. On the Council side, The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Their once proud fleets were being torn apart by the relentless human assault. Every moment of hesitation, every mistake, was met with swift retaliation. It was clear now, the Council was outmatched, outgunned, and outclassed. In the midst of the chaos, a young Council officer rushed into the leader's chamber. His face was pale, his eyes wide with panic. "Sir, the outer defense fleets have been destroyed. We're losing control of the outer systems." The elder leader turned to him, his expression hardening. "What about our final reserves?" "We've deployed everything we have," the officer replied, his voice breaking. "There's nothing left." A heavy silence filled the room. The elder leader stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving the holographic map of the galaxy that hovered in front of him. The map was a maze of flashing red dots, representing the Council's dwindling forces. Humanity was everywhere, pushing forward like an unstoppable wave, and the Council's forces were crumbling under the pressure. "This is it," the elder leader said softly, though there was no surrender in his tone. "We either win this fight, or everything we've built will be gone." As the Council scrambled to come up with a new strategy, the human fleet continued its advance. The battle had moved from one of sheer force to a battle of endurance and willpower. The humans were not just fighting to win, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy, to prove that they were no longer a species to be ignored or underestimated. The Council was not going down without a fight. With their last remaining forces, they prepared for one final push. The warships gathered, ready to strike back with everything they had. It was a do-or-die moment. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the battle for supremacy was far from over. The final moments of the battle were dawning, and the Galactic Council was on the edge of collapse. The once formidable fleets that had made their mark across the galaxy now lay in ruins, scattered across the black void of space like shattered glass. Humanity's warships, sleek and terrifyingly efficient, had torn through the Council's forces with relentless precision. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council found itself not as the ruler of the galaxy, but as the defeated. Desperation was creeping into every corner of the Council's command center. The leaders, now facing the weight of their imminent defeat, were gathering in silence. Every face in the room was grim, their expressions betraying the gravity of the situation. The elder leader, who had once stood as the embodiment of strength and unwavering power, now stood at the center, a heavy silence surrounding him. "This is it," the elder leader muttered, his voice low but steady. "We've lost. The galaxy will no longer bow to us." But even in defeat, there was a glimmer of resolve in his eyes. The Council was not a group to give up easily. The galaxy had fallen under their rule because of their cunning, their ability to adapt, and their readiness to do whatever was necessary. Even now, as their power waned, they were preparing for one last, desperate strike. It was a battle they could not afford to lose. "Prepare the last reserve fleet," the elder leader commanded, his voice carrying an edge of determination. "We will make our stand here, but we will not retreat." The final reserve fleet was the Council's last hope, an elite force of warships, each one equipped with the most advanced weaponry the galaxy had ever seen. These ships were not just built for battle, they were designed to crush any foe, no matter the cost. But as the reserve fleet slowly deployed, something in the air had changed. There was no longer the same sense of invincibility the Council once carried. It had all been shattered by the humans. Outside, in the void of space, the human warships continued their advance, now more assured than ever. They knew their victory was within their grasp. Their commander, standing on the bridge of her flagship, looked out at the warships that had once seemed unstoppable. Now, they were on the brink of defeat. Humanity's presence in the galaxy was no longer a rumor, it was a reality that no one, not even the Council, could ignore. She stood tall, her gaze unwavering as she surveyed the battlefield, the warships gliding silently through the stars, their engines humming with deadly intent. Were more than just weapons, they were symbols of humanity's strength, resilience, and determination. They had faced countless obstacles, fought wars of their own, and now, they were poised to take the galaxy back. The final push, the human commander whispered to herself. "We end this now." With a swift motion, she gave the order to advance, and the human fleet surged forward, cutting through space with lethal precision. The time for negotiation had passed. There was no room for compromise. Humanity would no longer be a footnote in the galaxy's history, they would take their place at the table. Whether the Council liked it or not, that is, the two fleets prepared to clash for what could be the final time. The Council's leaders felt the weight of the moment settle in. They had underestimated humanity. They had believed that their vast power and decades of rule could not be challenged. But now, with their last fleet ready to engage, they realized the truth. They had been wrong. The first shots were fired with a deafening roar, breaking the silence of space. The human ships responded quickly, their energy beams slashing through the darkness, striking down the Council ships one by one. The battle, once thought to be a mere skirmish, was now a full-scale war for survival. Each ship fought with everything it had, every weapon, every maneuver, every ounce of willpower focused on a single goal: victory. The elder leader watched the destruction unfold on the screens in front of him. His fleet, though powerful, was crumbling under the relentless assault. His mind raced as he tried to find a solution, a way to turn the tide. But there was no miracle. The reality of their situation was clear. They were outmatched, outnumbered, and outclassed. "We need to stop them now," the younger leader shouted, her voice filled with panic. "If we don't, the galaxy will belong to them. All of this will be for nothing." But even as she spoke, the situation continued to deteriorate. The reserve fleet, once thought to be their trump card, was slowly being chipped away, each human warship proving more effective than the last. It was clear that the humans had come prepared for this fight. They were not just fighting for control, they were fighting for their future, and that determination was something the Council could not match. The human commander's voice echoed through the communication channels once again, cold and resolute. "You've had your chance. Now it's ours." Her words were like a final death sentence. The Council had no choice now but to face the consequences of their arrogance. Their fleets were in disarray, their leadership fractured, and their power slipping away like sand through their fingers. There was no turning back. One by one, the Council's ships fell. The once mighty empire that had ruled the galaxy with fear and intimidation was being undone in a matter of hours, and as the last of their ships fell into ruin, the human fleet stood victorious, a symbol of everything the Council had failed to recognize: humanity's strength, its will, and its place among the stars. The elder leader, standing amidst the wreckage of what was once his empire, felt the weight of his failure. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had shown them that true power didn't lie in control, it lay in the ability to inspire, to lead with purpose, and to stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds. And now, humanity was the galaxy's new ruler. The silence in the aftermath of the battle was deafening. The stars, once so vibrant and full of life, now seemed distant, almost mournful, as if they, too, were witnessing the end of an era. The Galactic Council, once the unquestioned rulers of the galaxy, now lay in ruins. Their fleets had been shattered, their leaders scattered, and their control over the galaxy reduced to nothing but dust and broken dreams. Humanity had proven its strength, but it was not through the sheer force of its warships alone. No, it was the human spirit, their resilience, their ability to adapt, to learn, and to rise from the ashes that had forged their victory. They had not sought to destroy the galaxy, they had sought to rebuild it, to bring a sense of balance and hope where only fear and tyranny had once reigned. As the dust settled, the human commander stood on the bridge of her flagship, gazing out at the remains of the Council's once proud empire. There was no joy in her eyes, no sense of triumph. What had happened here wasn't a victory, it was a turning point, a shift that would forever alter the course of the galaxy's history. Her voice, steady but filled with a quiet resolve, echoed through the comm system to her fleet. "This is not the end. This is the beginning of something new. We are not conquerors, we are protectors. We are not here to take control, we are here to guide. The galaxy belongs to all of us now, and it is our responsibility to ensure it is a place where peace and prosperity can thrive." Her words were not just a declaration, they were a call to action. Humanity had not come to conquer, it had come to offer the galaxy something it had never had before: a chance to rebuild, to rise above the tyranny of the past, and to create a future built on unity and cooperation on the planets scattered across the galaxy. News of the Council's fall spread quickly. The one stronghold of power where fear had ruled every corner of existence was no more. The enslaved, the oppressed, the forgotten who had lived under the weight of the Council's cruelty, now had a voice, and for the first time, they were being listened to. But the road ahead was not without challenges. The Council had not been a mere political entity, had been a deeply entrenched system. Its influence had touched every corner of the galaxy, and its destruction left a power vacuum that no one had anticipated. Now new alliances would need to be forged, old wounds healed, and distrust slowly dismantled. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy would have to figure out what it meant to live without fear, to live under the rule of something more than brute force: the human fleet. Now the dominant force in the galaxy moved forward with a sense of purpose. Each ship, each crew member, understood what was at stake. They were not here to impose their will, they were here to ensure that the galaxy, for all its chaos and complexity, could find its way to something better. It was a monumental task, one that would require patience, wisdom, and above all, trust. In the heart of the shattered Council's former capital, the human commander stepped forward, leading a group of ambassadors from various alien species. The city that had once symbolized the Council's rule now lay in ruins, a hollow reminder of the power that had once been. But as the humans stood there, they knew that this was where the true work began. "We are not your enemies," the commander said, addressing the assembly of alien leaders. "We are here to build something better, to create a new future where everyone has a voice. We must learn from the past, but we must not be shackled by it." One by one, the alien leaders stepped forward. Some were hesitant, their faces etched with the scars of years of oppression. Others were cautious, unsure if they could trust the humans who had toppled the very system that had once protected them. But there was a spark of hope in their eyes, a hope that had been absent for far too long. Humanity had shown them that it was possible to change, to break free from the chains of the past. "It will take time," the commander continued, "but together, we can rebuild. We can make this galaxy a place where we no longer live in fear of those who wield power, but a place where we can all stand together in peace." The first steps toward rebuilding the galaxy were not easy. There were many battles left to fight, both on the battlefield and within the hearts and minds of those who had lived under the Council's rule. But humanity, with its strength, its determination, and its unwavering belief in a better future, had already shown the galaxy that change was possible. They had not come to take control, they had come to lead by example, to prove that the true power of the galaxy lay not in military might, but in the hearts and minds of its people. As the human fleet set its course for the future, the galaxy looked on with a mix of uncertainty and hope. The Council's reign was over, but its legacy lingered, like a shadow cast across the stars. Yet, for the first time in history, the galaxy had a chance to create something new, a chance to redefine what it meant to live in the galaxy, to truly live, free from the fear and control that had shaped every decision for so long.